Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of my chronic illness journey story. So where we left off was me sort of identifying a new baseline, learning how to pace myself throughout the day, conserve energy, get my sleep right, make sure my diet's good, drink lots of water, electrolytes, all the things. And so we're going to pick back up the story in January 2024. We had been in our new home for it was just shy of a year, I think, at that point. And it was a Sunday morning, and my husband and I were enjoying our coffee, a nice slow morning. And he looked at me and said, "Holy moly, are you okay?" And I was like, "I feel a little hot, but other than that, I'm great." And I had a full-blown rash on my face. It was covering my elbows, down along my forearm, my hands, my knees, basically on all of my joints. And my fever was 104. Completely out of nowhere, had no idea what caused it. So at that point, I made the decision to finally go ahead and get a new primary care physician. I put that off for far too long after we had moved, because we moved about an hour and a half south from where we originally were. So I had to reestablish care with a whole new set of providers, which was very daunting at the time. So I established care, and my appointment, I think, wasn't for a month. And right around that same time, we got our water bill in the mail, and there was a crazy trend line just basically indicating that we were hemorrhaging water, or just had a slow leak of water over the last month. And so it meant that we probably had a leak. So we called out a plumbing company, and there had been a slow leak in our basement. Well, it's not really a basement. I don't really know how to describe it. They're weird sort of out here in Colorado, but it's like our, I don't know, underbelly, or like under the foundation. Crawl space. There you go. In our crawl space, the insulation was just about to burst. It was holding so much water. And so they came and ripped out our bathroom, found out that we had mold. And so we were living with mold for at least a month. So anyway, I share that because it's going to be relevant here in a little bit. So I go to see new primary care physician. She's phenomenal. To this day is still my biggest advocate, has truly saved my life. So she ran an autoimmune panel, just knowing my background from what she had seen in my records. And my ANA came back positive for the first time in my life, although it hadn't been tested since 2017. So who knows along the way. And then I had some other inflammatory markers that were a little bit elevated. So got in with a new rheumatologist and ran all of the tests. And basically, nothing was so salient to point in any direction for any specific autoimmune disease at that time. So I was re-diagnosed, or the diagnosis of undifferentiated connective tissue disease continued. And that is when I started to learn a lot about autoimmune diseases, how, they present very generally, and eventually they will evolve into something, or multiple different autoimmune diseases. But the treatment doesn't really change. And so we restarted Plaquenil, or hydroxychloroquine at that time. And we added a steroid taper, and we did a steroid injection because I was flaring pretty bad at that time. So all is good there. I'm like, okay, we're back on the path, but it definitely feels like there's something more going on. I was losing my balance. I was getting disoriented. I was dizzy constantly. I have a very vivid memory of walking into my bedroom and completely forgetting who I was, where I was, what was happening. It was one of the most bizarre feelings I have ever experienced as a human. And yeah, so just was struggling with balance. I had a lot of numbness and tingling in my legs, in my arms, specifically more so in my left side. And I did have that prior diagnosis of small fiber neuropathy, so I always just sort of chalked it up to that. But then I started getting some eye twitching and some skin twitching. And so anyway, my primary care physician referred me to a neurologist. A new neurologist, and they did all the tests. We did an MRI of my brain, which is when we found the first white matter lesions on my brain. But they were pretty nonspecific at the time. We chalked them up to, I've had migraines for many years. But I then had a really big fall. I had a bruise on my butt for like 4 straight weeks. It was like this large. It was pretty comical. But we couldn't figure out why I was having so much balance issues. And so anyway, we did the cervical spine MRI, the thoracic spine MRI, and then we also did a lumbar puncture. Our goal at that point was to rule out multiple sclerosis. And when we did the lumbar puncture, I had 0, I'm not going to say this word correctly, ogliconal bands, which is, the trademark diagnostic marker for multiple sclerosis. So I didn't have that, but I did have 100% lymphocytes in my cerebral spinal fluid, which indicates severe inflammation in your central nervous system and your spine. And so at that point, my neurologist was like, it's not anything neurological. And so she just sent me on my way. My primary care physician was like, hold the phone, 100% lymphocytes in your cerebral spinal fluid is not normal. And you also have elevated myelin basic protein. And so she sent me over to hematology for some type of suspected cancer. Hematology said, this is not cancer. We're not worried about that. We're not even going to evaluate her. And so they sent me back to neurology. Neurology failed to follow up, which was disheartening. And so I kind of just gave up at that point. And I just accepted, again, that this is my new normal. I was exhausted with continuing to have to advocate for myself, and the amount of siloed situations that were happening where like everybody was operating within their scope. Nobody was communicating. It was too systemic. I'm too complex, but nobody would say that. And so I just felt so incredibly defeated. Meanwhile, I was getting worse every single day. The fatigue was getting worse. I have a lactic acid feeling in all of my muscles, basically constantly. It started getting concerning when I would feel it sitting down, like lying still, just feeling like I'm constantly using my muscles. I also have saddle anesthesia, so like in this area of your body, which is pretty alarming when that happens. And I think I shared back in 2016, I had spine surgery on my L4, L5. And I also had an MRI of my hip at that time. And there was some potential like tissue death, necrosis in my hip. And so the fact that I have so much numbness and tingling in my left side, and it's getting worse, is progressing into that saddle area, is highly concerning, paired with all of my other, abnormal labs and blood work. It just didn't seem like something that I should drop. So I went back into neurology, shared these new symptoms. I had that eye twitch for a month. It was terrible. Plus the new swelling in my neck, and the photosensitive rash, and all of the just like inflammatory things happening in my spine. She spent the whole appointment, she was great before this, but she spent the whole appointment just commenting how good I looked and how cute my outfit was, where did I get it, how good I looked, just could not stop saying how good I looked. And so I just feel like she wasn't taking me seriously in that moment. And her comment as she was walking out the door was like, I'll order the cervical and lumbar spine MRI if it'll make you happy. And so I just really felt like our relationship was severed at that time. I think her intentions were there, like she had good intentions, but I just think that the complexity of my case was well beyond her scope, and she wasn't willing to admit that. To add to that portion of the story, the MRIs ended up getting denied, and I found out less than 24 hours before they were scheduled. I was really looking forward to them to have, updated scans for my Cleveland Clinic visit, just one thing less that we wouldn't have to do. I hit my out-of-pocket max for insurance for the first time in my entire life, and I was really excited about that. And coincidentally, both of those MRIs got denied by insurance. I look at the appeal letter. The neurologist put it in as like unspecified chronic fatigue, and insurance recommended that I do injections into my spine, which just blew me away, because how do you know where to inject steroids into the spine if you don't know where or what the problem is? So it took me a little bit to recover from that. I felt pretty defeated. I definitely took it personally. And went back to my primary care physician. She just is continuing to be my rock and continuing to take me seriously. She can see the symptoms, like the picture is there. I have put all the data together. You cannot argue with data. So anyway, I saw her last Thursday because I woke up in the middle of the night on Wednesday with a popping noise or sensation in the back of my spine. I apologize if I already shared this. I can't remember. But it was a popping in my spine and just immediate pain, like through the whole back part of my back, through my chest, through my arm. It was numb and tingly. Both of my arms were asleep, like I could not feel them at all. And then the next day I just had a terrible headache, all of the pressure in my neck, my spine, it was visibly inflamed. I'll pop a picture in here. And so she saw me, my blood pressure was through the roof, my heart rate was through the roof, I had 103-degree fever. And she said, I got you. I'm going to get you in touch with, we just had the top 1% neurosurgeon in the world tried to retire to a rural ranch here in Colorado, which is sort of where I live in like the very rural west part of the state. And she was like, she tried to retire. I pulled her out of retirement. She has a small practice and she only sees my patients. And she was like, she will text you tomorrow. So this incredible neurosurgeon, I could go on and on about her accolades, but I like to keep things private just, for safety. But she is phenomenal, and isn't, she's not just a neurosurgeon. She is so incredibly skilled in all things, just cerebrovascular, just everything central nervous system related. She called me and she said, I'm so excited to meet you and I can't wait to take excellent care of you. And so for the first time in my medical journey, I feel excited. I feel optimistic. It's just a feeling I can't describe. So I see her tomorrow afternoon. And then on Monday, I fly out to Cleveland for my Cleveland clinic visit. So the stars aligned at the very last minute, which is my life to a T. And so she's got access to all my previous scans. I put together a one-sheeter for her of my diagnoses, my symptoms, my abnormal labs, the timeline, and everything that we've tried thus far to hopefully just be efficient, get her up to speed really quickly, and we'll take it from there. So at this point, I forgot one essential piece. I also saw a functional medicine doctor during this time as well. Flashback to the mold situation. So there is a condition called chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and it is typically in response to your body reacting to toxins in the environment inappropriately. You have to be genetically dispositioned to it, and lucky me, got the genes for all the bad things. And so my markers were off the roof, through the roof. Anyway, so I've been on treatment for that for about a year now. I'm feeling a lot better. And so that's just one other piece of the puzzle. And then I also, when you are diagnosed with chronic inflammatory response syndrome, you typically also have mast cell activation syndrome. And so we tested for that, which is really hard to do because you have to be in a flare, you have to be fasting, the stars have to align for that test to be accurate. And so I did meet criteria for that as well. So my current diagnoses are connective tissue disease, which is evolving either into rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, or central nervous system lupus. There's also some wondering about EDS, because we evaluated what we thought was a chest wall mass for 6 months. We did MRIs, all the types of scans. It's a slipped rib, causing all sorts of fun symptoms. And also, is that subluxation, popping sensation in my neck, is that, from connective tissue disease, hypermobility? So it all kind of is intertwined. I feel like I left out so many details, but anyway, back to the diagnoses. So the connective tissue disease evolving into one of those things or all of those things. The biopsy confirms small fiber neuropathy, the chronic inflammatory response syndrome, the mast cell activation syndrome. I also have balance disorder and a handful of plethora of other things. Oh, and dysautonomia / POTS. I forgot that one. So Next steps for me, the neurosurgeon appointment tomorrow afternoon, my Cleveland Clinic visit next week. And I, again, am feeling like we are so close. Been at this for almost 10 years, and it has taken every ounce of energy for me to get where I am today. At my worst health possible, you wouldn't be able to tell. Thank you, neurologist, for emphasizing the fact that I look good, even while my insides are not functioning well. So I will keep you guys posted. My next couple of videos, my next week's video is going to be me packing all the things that I'm taking to Cleveland Clinic. I am traveling solo, which I'm pretty terrified about, but we have sort of maxed out my husband's time off with all of the medical appointments and things that I've had to do already this year. So hopefully that's helpful, just, getting to see how I pack, what I pack, and how I make it through those travels solo. And then the week after that will be my Cleveland Clinic visit. So you may get little sneak peeks of results and things like that during my little Monday morning mindset video, short videos that I do. So check there for updates in the meantime. But thank you guys so much for being here on this journey with me. And if there's anything that I can do differently or more of or less of, very receptive to feedback. I think I've shared that this community is what saved me throughout all of the unknowns, and being gaslit by different medical providers and jumping through a million hoops and losing my sanity along the way. And so I want to create videos that I wish I would have had when I was on that journey. So let me know if you have any ideas, thoughts, feedback, or otherwise. And if not, I hope that you have such a wonderful and relaxing weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday.